of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There is no call. I know that. I understand that the folks in Texas say that without a comma, but
No. My English teacher taught me that.
those of us from New Jersey say the pledge with a comma.
There's no comma.
Ms. Mason, could we have the roll call vote?
Ms. Bates? Here. Mr. Eden?
Here.
Mrs. Fryrick?
Here.
Ms. Leopold Sharp?
Here.
Mr. Posnow?
Here.
Mr. Robinson?
Here.
Mrs. Schrader?
Here.
Ms. Schaefer? And Mr. Toman.
Here.
Good evening. We'll see if I've finally typed my password in correctly. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our monthly voting meeting. For those of you who've not been to one of our meetings before, this is the meeting in which we take action. There'll be 2 times for public comment, one at the beginning of the meeting now and one at the conclusion of the action items. And you're free to comment on anything you wish. Step to the microphone and please identify yourself by name and address. And we limit comments to 5 minutes. They're directed to the board chair. If you had been here 2 weeks ago at our planning meeting, that's when we have a lot of discussion and comments after each topic. So please don't think that we're making a number of serious decisions this evening without ever talking about them. It's just that you're at the tail end of the process, so tonight we're just voting on them. I need to ask the board for approval of minutes of our planning meeting of April the 3rd and our regular monthly meeting of March the 20th. Are there changes, corrections, additions? If not, then we will file those for audit. Mr. Posnow, the Treasurer's Report.
Would any member of the board like to have these items considered separately? Are there any questions? If not, the chair moves approval of the below-mentioned items.
Second.
Ms. Mason, we can do a short roll call for that.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Anything else, Mr. Posnow? This is a particularly pleasant opportunity for me as the board president to recommend that we vote on renewal of the contract for Dr. Michelle A. Merkel as superintendent of the York Suburban School District for a 4-year term as set forth in the contract with a 2017-18 salary of $186,000. Is there a motion? Second. Ms. Mason, could we have roll call on that, a regular roll call?
Bowman?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
Posnow?
Yes.
Eden?
Yes.
Schaefer? Fryrick?
Yes.
Bates? Yes. Leopold Sharp?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Congratulations, Dr. Merkel.
Thank you very much, and I would like to thank the board for your continued support. I feel like I've got the best job in the planet, working for the best school district around, and feel very, very fortunate. Your support will only encourage more hard work, so thank you very much. I'm lucky to be here.
And I think I speak for the 9 of us when we say we're proud and pleased to be able to serve with you as a group of 10. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Dr. Merkel, your report.
To my report. Thank you very much. First, under the superintendent's report is a student enrollment report. I think by now we've gotten into a rhythm with this. Are there any questions or concerns with the student enrollment report? Okay. I'd like to move on and acknowledge that tonight we'll make a series of recommendations for board approval as stated. The board president. There's a lot of work went into this by administrators, by teams of teachers, and certainly by the board in considering the recommendations that come next with regard to special education in the district. And it gives me great pleasure to recommend board approval of the implementation of a district-operated autistic support program at the primary level, beginning with the start of the 17-18 school year.
So moved.
Any questions for Dr. Merkel? Ms. Say, is there any need for those to be individual roll calls, since we're bringing curriculum back? A short roll call. A short roll call on that, then, Ms. Mason.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you. Following that, because we will have a new program, we will need the additional teaching position, so the administration recommends board approval of the addition of a full-time teaching position for the district-operated autistic support class at the primary level.
So moved.
Any questions for Dr. Merkel? we can have a short roll call on that as well.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
A month ago, the board approved the emotional support program at the primary level as well, and so in tonight's meeting, we'd like to recommend the addition of a full-time teaching position to support that program also, effective at the start of the 17-18 school year.
So moved. Second.
Any questions for Dr. Merkel? Ms. Mason?
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you again to the board for your support on these very, very important and really game-changing initiatives at the district. Thank you to Dr. Ketterman, Mrs. Hasenfuss is somewhere, and Dr. Maloney for your work in bringing all of this to fruition for the district. We're about to embark on some really exciting endeavors at the primary level with both of these programs, so thank you. The administration also recommends board approval of the 2017-18 district goals. We presented these, gave the opportunity for the board to discuss. We provided some insight to the board at the planning meeting as to the kinds of things we intend to complete under them. As is typical, we will work on the approved district goals at our administrative rally in June, setting forth a spreadsheet with action steps and timelines, et cetera, and give the board quarterly updates on those. Are there any questions on the proposed 17-18 district goals?
Has there been a motion?
No, would you like to make one? No.
Now are there questions on the goals?
All right, Ms. Mason, we can have a short roll call on that.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
The administration recommends the board approval of a calendar change for this school year to exclude early dismissals for seniors for final exams on May 22nd and 23rd.
Any questions or?
This is, senior exams have been in place for some time. We had changed the calendar to put senior exams in for half days so the students could take them, and then the seniors could take them and then be dismissed. What the faculty and administration at the high school studied over the course of the year was the small number of single senior exams as opposed to exams in which they were engaged with other students and so forth. And it became clear that the time would be better served for the students to take them during the Keystone exam period. And so the administration actually proposed this with the students and the faculty at the high school, and it's kind of a afterthought to come to the board.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
As long as the students are good.
I don't know about good, but it's been handled very well. I did mention this in a weekly to try to help people understand.
Mr. Payton, but you're not a senior, so.
No. Next year.
Next year.
Here's hoping you will be one.
Any other questions for Dr. Merkel? We can do a short roll call on that.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
The administration recommends board approval of the continuation of expulsion of student with a state ID number of 16413791138 as set forth in the administrative disciplinary hearing agreement following a hearing conducted by board-appointed hearing officer Victoria Gross. The agreement sets forth the details, and the student will have the opportunity to return the second quarter of the 17-18 school year.
Any questions that Dr. Merkel can address? Can we have a short roll call for that?
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
And finally, under the superintendent's report, the administration recommends board approval of the confidential administrative disciplinary hearing agreement for a student with a state ID number of 95839366715 following a hearing conducted by board appointing hearing officer Victoria Gross.
Any questions? Ms. Mason, that can be a short roll call.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
That concludes my report, and I again thank the board for your support of these programs.
Thank you, Dr. Merkel. As we were speaking under our breath up here, we're going to slightly change our agenda this evening, and we're going to move to the Personnel Committee report now instead of the Business Office report. So, Ms. Bates, it's all yours.
Thank you. The first item is to note that the March 7th minutes are provided. And second, I'd like to move to the consent agenda. You have before you the personnel report, which includes resignation, appointment, employment, leave of absence, guest teacher, and volunteers. Would any board member like any of these items considered separately? Or does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. Dr. Merkel, can you give us some idea of the number of years that some of these people have been teaching already? I don't mean to blindside you if you don't know.
The teachers on, that we're hiring this evening.
Underemployment, yeah.
Step 2 would indicate 1 or 2 years.
Okay.
Mrs. Fiorentino is coming from out of state, so that could change that a little bit. Actually, Mrs. Cates can give me that is 20? I was going to say 18.
Okay.
I was helping you out there, Mrs. Cates. Mr. Kurowski, 8 years. 8 years.
Any other questions? Then the chair moves for approval.
Any other questions for Dr. Merkel? We can do this on a short roll call, Ms. Mason.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you. That concludes my report, and I will turn it over to Dr. Merkel. If now that you've been quizzed, you have anything else that you'd like to say?
I'll see what else I can remember. Thank you very much. I'd like to first acknowledge something a little bit unusual. We have a resignation from Ian Toner, a personal care assistant at the middle school. And I wish he were here this evening, but I just wanted to highlight a story. This is a York Suburban, very recent graduate. And really was not sure of what he wanted to do in life and really was struggling a bit. And we actually recruited him to come in and work as a personal care assistant. He spent last year with us at Indian Rock, a part of the year, and did a great job, moved to the middle school this year and did a great job. And he's resigning because he found his way, got his feet under him, and he's going off to college and has a tremendous amount of gratitude, certainly for his 13 years of schooling here. But I think just as important to him was the year and a half that he served as a personal care assistant, and it made a difference. So I point that out. I don't know if anyone knows Ian or has the opportunity to see him, but it's neat to have seen the evolution in a young man a year and a half out. So it's a great story.
What's a personal care assistant?
A student of special needs who needs a one-to-one. It can be for a variety of reasons. Often it's autism, but there can be a number of reasons. I would like to highlight some others with our hires. Dr. Todd Monas couldn't be here tonight, but we're thrilled to have him move from middle school assistant principal really back to his roots of primary. He was a primary principal at Northeastern for 6 or 7 years before he came to York Suburban. Wanted a taste of York Suburban, got it, didn't want to leave, but is eager for a principalship, loved his primary experience, and so he'll be working under Dr. Ketterman, specifically implementing full-day kindergarten, the new autism program, and the emotional support program. So it's really a great to have his experience coming in, but also exciting for him to be tackling new programs. So Dr. Monas, we're confident will do a great job. Then we have several visitors with us, some above 5, too. I'd like to first introduce Mrs. Christina Fiorentino. If you'll stand up, I believe your husband perhaps with you? I'm sorry, and I've been saying Miss, I'm sorry, okay. Wow, no pressure, young man. Wow. I'm sorry, sir. Ms. Fiorentino actually sent a resume and letter to me early in the fall, and I get bunches of those over the course of the year, but hers just jumped out at me with enthusiasm and energy that I thought we need to pursue this a little bit. And I invited her in on one of her days off and she came in and just did kind of an informal interview with me, and I knew right away this was York Suburban material. But she, of course, as soon as an opening came available, she applied, went through the process. The committee brought her to the final candidacy, and really did a nice job in our lesson. Also coaches track in her current role, so we'll probably be recruiting her there as well. And Miss Fiorentino, thank you for being here tonight. Mrs. Cates is here with us tonight from a neighboring district. We're stealing her from Dallastown, and so we've gotten some darts thrown at us from Dallastown again. But Mrs. Cates came in, lots of experience, a parent in the district, and clearly her heart really does bleed orange and black, and we're getting rid of that blue and white stuff. But welcome, Mrs. Cates. We're looking forward to your experience, your wisdom, your knowledge. Clearly, York Suburban's ready to employ someone like you. Thank you very much. And you have folks with you. I'm not going to take a chance here.
This is my husband and my 2 sons who are currently students in York Suburban.
And they're excited to have you in the district, right?
Only one wardrobe color now. You can wear it for their events and your work events.
And I appreciate that your husband is sporting the orange, too. So he's catching on quickly. Mr. Karowski, do you want to introduce us right off the bat?
My wife Sarah and my 10.5-month-old son Aiden.
Mr. Karowski is coming on board in chemistry, and again, chemistry is one of those positions we were very concerned about filling. It's not every day that you can find a really talented chemistry teacher who's willing to move to a new school district. We're stealing Mr. Karowski from West York. He comes with stellar recommendations, does all kinds of creative things with individual students. My favorite was your chemistry. Yeah, it was really corny, but it was really pretty cool. But again, and trying to call him to make an offer, it took me about 6 phone calls because he's on the soccer field coaching young students. So again, I think we found a gem. Welcome aboard, Mr. Karowski. And finally, no stranger to York Suburban is Melissa Skimsky. Melissa's been with us, but through the IU, and she's been employed at the IU at Valley View for some time. We've known of her expertise, we've relied on it, we've used it, but to be honest with you, in the interview process, I was blown away by the things that she has and has been offering to us and really will continue to. We're looking at her to help us with not just our autistic support program, but we're confident she's going to help us district-wide with lots of behavior kinds of things. So, Melissa Skimsky, please share with us who is with you.
My husband Chris, my daughter Addison, and my son Tyler.
Thank you very much and congratulations. And on that note,
I think we should first applaud
Okay.
and welcome.
And Dr. Maloney will take you out for the contract signing and photo opportunity.
And you are absolutely permitted and expected not to return. Although we would love to have you in the audience, especially those of you who are taxpayers.
Family members, boyfriends.
My work is done now.
She has 2 sons. She knows what she just did.
My goodness. Feel free to move to your right if you like, ma'am. You don't have to be there in the dark ages of the doorway.
Welcome back.
Ms. Bates, you're completely done, and Dr. Merkel, you're completely done in that regard?
Yes, I am.
Then let's back up, Ms. Mason. Now we'll go to the business office report, and you may do those separately or together, however you wish.
Well, the first one has to be separate.
Oh, absolutely.
The administration recommends board approval of the resolution authorizing proposed final budget display and advertising for the 2017-18 budget.
So moved. Second.
Any questions, or Mr. Postnow, do you want to say anything about the budget?
Yeah, I guess what I'd like to say is that I think the administration worked really hard this year so that we were able to come in with a budget that was under-indexed to kind of help the taxpayers for a while. I think it's been a while since we've managed to bring something to the taxpayers below index. So I think that's a good thing. So I think, yeah, kudos to the administration.
Anything else? Then,
Did
Ms.
you
Mason?
want me to talk about the timeline, or about the,
Changes?
budget comparison
Why don't you do
before
that?
or
Yeah.
after a vote?
I don't, there probably aren't copies up there.
No.
Okay.
This does reflect, based on the planning meeting, this does reflect, and the PDE document actually does the same thing. The numbers are actually the same in both reports. But you're used to seeing the budget comparison. That's why I thought it'd be best to talk to that. The very first item on the revenue, the real estate, that does reflect the 1.5% increase. There also, we got our latest, assessment valuation report from the county, and our assessment has actually gone up over $1 million. So that added some, about $30,000 to our, total as well. So that was good news. Miscellaneous revenue went up slightly, just with some additions we had to put in. And then the only other change on revenue would be under the state, based on the salary expense increase a little bit. The Social Security and retirement revenue increase is appropriate with the expense. Okay? And then on the expenses, as I just mentioned, the salaries went up, so in comparison, all of the other benefits typically go up, with the exception of the medical insurance, because we are taking the 2-month holiday, that went down. However, you'll notice on the decrease, it's not quite the same amount, but it does all work out. I did decrease it $686,066, like we had looked at on that document. So I'm not going to go over each one, but if you look at the 2,000 objects in total, that did decrease $636,000. The 300 object decreased $53,000. All of it basically was a reclass, with the exception of, when you look under the 500s, the charter school tuition, that actually in itself increased $210,000. And that was due to a rate change we got from PDE. And we also had a shift in the number of special ed students that we were budgeting for, just because of the change that we've had from last month to this month and the way they're being brought in. So that gave us a little bit of a hit. And other than that, for the rest of the report, our numbers basically went down. So when you get back to the last sheet, which is the summary sheet, when you look at the 2017-18 proposed budget column, the change in the fund balance, which is we knew we would have a difference there, and that was going to be coming from the unassigned fund balance, or a combination of. That now says $479,000 and change. We had talked about it coming in right around $400,000, and the difference really is in the charter school. So that's what our numbers look like as of today. Any questions?
Could you repeat what you said about the charter school tuition?
It's an increase of $210,000.
From PDE?
Right, because we get, based on there's a calculation of 363 document that we do at the beginning. We do it in July. In other words, we would have done it in July of 16 for the 17-18 school year. And it's based on our financial, what we think our financial report will settle out from 15-16. So we do the best there we can to calculate it. Then PDE is supposed to adjust it in January, and then again in March. We didn't get an adjustment in January, and we just got it right at our last meeting. That is the adjustment for now, so that's why we had a change like that.
So you're trying to predict over a year in advance.
Correct. And our charter school enrollment has gone up again. Right now, we're budgeting for 101 kids.
Other questions for Ms. Mason? Mrs. Schaefer?
Actually, mine's really good for administration in general. Since we often make headlines when we increase the index or above, I've asked if we're
We can certainly do that if that's the will of the board.
But I would think we wouldn't do that till we pass the final budget in May.
In regards to the budget, do you see any movement in Harrisburg, any feeling for what they're doing up there as far as budget is concerned, or? Because that does impact.
No change from 2 weeks ago when we reported out. I'm confident it's gonna be on time because that's what we keep hearing. We're not, but we usually have stronger indications if it's not going to be.
Okay.
The notification I got today said they're only gonna be in 2 days this week, and that really the full-blown budget discussions really aren't gonna happen until after May 1st. But they're still anticipating, June 30th approval.
And are they still doing any work on pensions I've seen and property tax?
They're saying maybe you got something different, but what I'm hearing is they are, but they're trying not to tie it to the budget. They're in other words, they're running the discussions, but they're paralleling. They're not making a part of adopting the budget, which tells me that they're gonna do something maybe next year. But,
Next year and next year and next year, which is.
Well, or they'll do something in the fall since it's not an election year for the legislature, but there's certainly, where I sit, there's been no sense that they're fast-tracking. I think they're in tomorrow and one other day, and then because there is a May primary, although they're back after May 1st, there may not be much movement till after the primary.
Right. And then just sort of a sidebar to budget, but are we still putting forth effort to recruit our charter school students back, or is there anything we can do to, since our numbers are increasing, to remedy that?
We have seen this incline. We will be putting a full court press on, in the next weeks, so we recover for the start of next school year.
Yeah, okay, good, thank you.
Is the increase that you see across the board, is it elementary?
I can't speak to that specifically. I can be prepared to at next board meeting.
I was just told board, I don't know if any of you had an opportunity to see this morning's newspaper, with reference to the, legislature and the fact they have $118 million in their legislative sort of slush fund in case, according to Representative Grove, in case the budget doesn't get passed, they'll have money to continue to run their offices. And, Auditor General Di Pasquale would like to audit the legislature and see where their monies are and where they're not. He says, really schools should be keeping 10 to 20% of their budgets, of their expenditures in a fund balance. I think it's kind of interesting since we're not supposed to go above 8% anyway. So there's all kinds of things going on up there.
Any other questions? Ms. Mason, I just have one, this new recalculation from PD. Is it all prospective, or does it impact this school year as well? The increase in the charter school tuition?
It impacts current school year.
Current school year as well as next year.
Correct.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, then, let's have a roll call vote for this.
Okay. Posenow?
Yes.
Eden?
Yes.
Bates?
Yes.
Fryrick?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
Schaefer? Robinson?
Yes.
Toman?
Yes.
Leopold Sharp?
Yes. And Ms. Mason, can you share for the public, how this will be available for the next 30 days, or where it will be available?
It's available here in the office, or it'll be on the website.
And then we meet again on May the 22nd to vote on the final budget.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
The administration recommends board approval of the TransFinder contract and license agreement for a total amount of $23,495.
Second.
Any questions, Ms. Mason? That can be a short roll call.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. The administration recommends board approval of network switches and wireless access points. Oh, I have the old contract. Hold on one second. The administration recommends board approval of ePlus Technologies, successful bidder through PEPM, at a total cost of $148,737 $2,000.80 for Cisco Meraki switches and wireless access points.
Second.
Does E-Plus Technology just provide the equipment, or do they provide local expertise to install and,
They do provide expertise in installation.
so they'll configure
Direct,
for
yes.
best possible
Correct.
coverage?
That can be a short roll call, Ms. Mason.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. The administration recommends board approval of a one-year license agreement with Forecast 5 in the amount of $7,500.
Second.
Any questions?
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. The administration recommends board approval of the bid to Industrial Combustion Specialty, Inc. for the water heater replacement that services the high school education center and maintenance building at a cost of $91,400.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions from Ms. Mason?
I do have a comment, if I may. This was budgeted at $334,500, so this came in quite under bid. And if you will, at your seats, I did have there as a handout a timeline that shows you where, since there was no facilities meeting to get this out to you, I wanted to see that you had what we currently do have available as far as what the, from a capital plan standpoint, what was out there as our budget and what's been awarded and what's left to be awarded. We will have one other award this evening, which, if you recall, was on the plan, and then we took it off, and that's why that particular one does not have a budget to it, and that's the East York kitchen modification.
We're still thinking of taking this money out of the,
That was my question. This comes out of capital reserve
Capital
rather
reserve.
than bond money.
It can be either or. The equipment itself, though, is coming from the cafeteria fund. That's
For the
what,
hot water
that's
heater.
what threw this
Not for the
off.
hot water heater.
Not for the
No, not for the hot water heater.
hot water
That-
heater is coming out of,
It
either way.
either, it can come out either way.
Motion to where we want it to come out of? or-
No.
Like, just don't take it out of bond.
Are there questions for Ms. Mason? I have a question. I see that the hot water replacement, there's no bid award dollar amount in this column.
That's because the board hadn't awarded it yet.
Does the, 3.9 million does not include that amount, am I correct?
Correct. What's included in that amount is what's only in that column.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, fine, thank you. Any other questions? We can have a short.
This
For
will be
that.
considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. The administration recommends board approval of a 2-year extension to the contract for audit services to Smith Elliott Kearns and Company LLC for 2017-18 in the amount of $25,100 and 2018-19 in the amount of $25,750.
Any questions? Well, could we have a
I'll move.
motion and a,
Second.
any questions about that one? We can do a short roll call.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Next is the East York bid. The administration recommends awarding the general contractor bid for the East York kitchen modifications to East Coast Contracting, Inc. in the amount of $204,200.
So moved.
Second.
And how much of that is coming from cafeteria? Isn't some of that coming out?
$125,000.
And I'm assuming this will be done by school, start of school.
Yes.
Any other questions? I apologize, I was asking Dr. Merkel a question. Did we have a motion and a second on that?
We did.
Then could we have a short roll call?
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, the administration recommends board approval of the agreement with Reliance Student Transportation LLC for pupil transportation for a 5-year period beginning July 1, 2017, and ending June 30, 2022. This is an extension when we approved the RFP. The contract wasn't a part of the RFP. That's why we're approving the contract tonight.
Second.
Any other questions for Ms. Mason? Let's do a long roll call for that. It's a lot of money.
Schrader,
Yes.
Leopold Sharp,
Yes.
Bates, Fryrick,
Yes.
Toman,
Yes.
Posnow,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Schaefer, and Eden.
Yes.
Okay. And last item, the administration recommends board approval of contract with Melissa Skimsky in the amount of $1,500 for extended year schooling for the summer of 2017.
So moved.
I just asked Dr. Merkel to speak to that very, very briefly.
We just hired Melissa tonight. Her contract with York Suburban doesn't begin until August, but she'll be providing extended year schooling for a special needs student over the summer. And because she's not on contract, we have to hire her separately because she's working in advance of her contract. Otherwise, she would be covered in the teacher contract for work over the summer. So that's why we've set this up as a separate contract, so she can begin working with this child over this summer before her new contract with York Suburban begins in August.
And are we obligated for this particular child by law for a particular reason, not other children?
Yes,
I mean, not to
and
ask details, but I'm just assuming that's
A
the
special
case.
needs child, IEP calls for extended school year, and this child qualifies.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? I just thought we might want to clarify that. Ms. Mason, we can do a short roll call on this one.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
I'm going to comment one more on that. We see Mrs. Hassenfuss's handprints all over the board agendas in the recent months, and really, we don't often see a pupil personnel director out in front of us with such initiatives. And this is just another example of her work. And I've thanked her at each of the past number of board meetings. But again, a lot of work coming out of our special ed pupil personnel. So.
And then I have the two informational items, the donation from the All Sports Booster Club and the food service items, if you have any questions on them. And that concludes my report.
So today, the tennis team had a match against Dover, and we won 3-2, so that's exciting. We have 2 matches left this season, so it's coming to a close pretty quickly. Wednesday is senior night. It's at home versus West York, and then next Monday we're at Red Lion for the last match of the year. For counties, we're sending all 4 seniors as of right now, which would be Tyr Abenshawn, Daniel Lee, Shobit Karana, and Tom Platts. They're all making it to counties. Shobit and Tom playing as doubles, and Dan and Tyr for our singles players. 2 Saturdays ago, they had the Arctic Blast Invitational for track, which is held at Northern High School. Overall, we did pretty well. Track is supposed to do pretty well this year. Our stronger sprinters include Talon Peffley, Bodie Wilson, Kendi Hood, and Ty Avery for both boys and girls. For hurdlers, we have Maddie James, Ty Avery, and Andrew Paskey. Our strong distance runners, Bryce Ole, Peter Wagner, and Jarrett Rudensky, as well as Zet Flum and Emma Trout. Our jumpers, we have Maddie James, Mary Gnavage, and Bodie Wilson. We have Ralph Casper, who's really good at throwing, and Grace Tyson, who has broken the school record multiple times already and is a pole vaulter. So, yeah. Tonight, the boys volleyball team, who is ranked extremely high, as of right now, I believe 4th in the state, is playing against Manheim Central in the gym right now. Baseball is not doing so well this season as like what I've seen, like the newspaper and just overall. Today they played at Kennerdale. I'm not totally sure how they did. The lacrosse, the boys team's had a good season. We've had a few tough losses, but we're supposed to do pretty well. The girls have yet to win a game, but that's okay. We just need to, yeah, we'll win a game. Yeah. Exactly, yeah. Last Tuesday, the Model UN team had their last convention at West York. Bryn Walsh and Phoebe Kaplan won an award for their efforts in the strategic response team. As I stated at the last meeting, the AP tests are quickly approaching. They begin in 3 weeks, so that's really soon. It starts out with chemistry and ends with, I believe, some history course. But there's about 20 AP tests, but we only take the ones that Suburban offers. And they're about 4 hours long, and they earn you college credit depending what score you get. Elise Atkinson, who is the next student board rep, is doing her dress drive again for prom. In the fall, she had one for homecoming, which she collected dresses from different students around the school district, and she collected 120, and they went to William Penn kids for their prom, and all of them went. This spring prom, she had over 6 schools help donate, raised over 400 dresses, and again is helping with not only William Penn but also West York. So she has high hopes for that. That'll be on April 20th. That's when they'll have the fashion show and all the girls try on the dresses and pick which one they want. So it's really cute and goes to a good cause. The National Honor Society had an Easter egg hunt for the kindergartners at not only Valley View but as well as Yorkshire. We had 2 kindergarten classes for both the AM and PM at each school. We hit eggs, and each kid could get 3 eggs, and they got a little prize. They had a lot of fun. All of the NHS volunteers had a lot of fun too, so it was a great event. The National English Honor Society had their annual coffee house last Wednesday. It's a fundraiser. I guess now it's for all the honor societies because we're linked into one. But it's kids played music, sang, did comedy routines, and then there was food available for purchase. Last Wednesday there was also the Tri-M recital, which is the National Music Honor Society. There was many outstanding performances, some from the seniors who this is one of their last performances at York Suburban. So sad, but it was also a great event. The AP Biology class visited Millersville 2 weeks ago to look at cadavers in the cadaver lab. Great experience, lots of fun. I did it last year. It was pretty cool. Currently, the AP Biology class is dissecting cats, and the Anatomy class is dissecting fetal pigs. And finally, for Student Council, there's nothing new. We're still planning prom, and then that'll be it for this year. Any questions?
When are your elections? When are student council elections?
We're having the paperwork is due soon. I know that for the class officers, that's due this Friday, and then senators are doing 2 Fridays, and then elections will be shortly after that. So that concludes my report.
Thank you very much.
The Herb Schmidt relays are on this Friday. Come out, great event. Lots of different schools, really awesome. That's everything.
So you wanted to make certain there was nothing that Mrs. Schaefer could report on. Thank you. So we now turn to committee reports. Mrs. Schaefer. Communications.
Yeah, well, no, I'm always in awe of how comprehensive Mr. Stewart's report always is. I will add, though, if you do click on the activities link, you'll also see some of the winter sports all-stars. There's girls and boys swimming as well as girls basketball. The only other thing I would add is that the Communications Committee does have a meeting coming up, and that would be Tuesday, April 25th at 4:30. That concludes my report.
And I have to make my volleyball pitch. The number 4 AAA York Suburbans are hosting the Mannheim Central AA ranked 2nd in the state.
So it's going to be a good match.
So it should be an excellent match. We've had personnel. We will move on to, excuse me, I should turn my pages more quickly. Additional committee reports. Anyone else who wants to announce anything or report anything? Mr. Postma, do you want to mention the upcoming Finance Committee report, a meeting?
The upcoming Finance Committee meeting is May the 3rd.
And so that's when we'll have any other updated financial information? Thank you. Mr. Robinson, anything from the Lincoln Intermediate Unit?
Why, yes, there is. At our last meeting, we were treated to a brilliant description of a program enabled by a federal grant to help improve the caliber and ability of math teachers, which is a subject near and dear to my heart only because I have a clinical aversion to math and would have benefited greatly from these kinds of teachers. Apparently there's a statewide shortage of math teachers and a constant need to retrain and refresh those teachers that are holding the line against math ignorance. So it was really a very informative production. I'm really serious about wishing that I had had that kind of instruction. Otherwise, all the other materials are contained in the Dawn's Early Light, which I'm sure you've all committed to memory. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Fryrick, the York Adams Academy.
As the enrollment report shows, we have 9 students at York Adams Academy now. We have 4 students who are ready to graduate at commencement on June 5th at 7 p.m. at the Learning Center. And we already have 4 students who have tested and are ready to begin in August when school starts anew. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Ms. Mason, York Adams Tax Bureau.
No report.
Mrs. Schrader, how about the York County School of Technology?
No report. We have a meeting later this week, or this month.
This is the second time during our monthly meeting when we would invite the public to make comments. If you're interested, speak to the microphone and share your name and address.
I missed the first time.
That's fine, Mr. Grawl. You can go now.
I didn't get a chance to exercise my privilege. I'm Dick Grawl. I live at 2401 Cambridge Road in Spring Spray Township. About 3 weeks ago, I had the great privilege. I would recommend each one of you take advantage of observing classes in the high school. Very, very interesting experience. I observed Mr. Rumbaugh's 9th grade history class, Mr. Hoover's 11th grade history class, and Mr. Wilson's accounting class. Mr. Rumbaugh does not use a textbook. He prints out all the material that he wants to cover. He uses video also to do this, and the students 2 or 3 times a week, I believe, have quizzes based on his paper. He creates a new paper each year. He's done this for, I think he told me 5 or 6 years, and each year he creates a new paper to base his teaching on. Very, very interesting class, a very inspired teacher, and since I'm a retired school teacher, I think I have a kind of leg up on evaluating quality of teachers. He's excellent. He is excellent. And then I observed Mr. Rumbaugh's 11th grade history class. Very interesting aspect there. He was teaching law. Okay, I've taught a business law course when I was in the classroom, but this this is based on law that's applied. And what he had happening there, several subjects, several areas of subjects, and he had the students take a positive or negative, affirmative or negative position. And it's obvious that the students were well prepared because they dealt with a variety of areas. One of the areas was on the idea of the abortion right and the decision a number of years ago to provide abortion. And both of the students were pretty well prepared, and they flipped their papers back and they heard a variety of sources and so forth. So very interesting presentation. And again, a very competent teacher. Rejoice in the fact that he's part of the faculty here at Suburban. And finally, I saw Mr. Wilson. Well, Mr. Wilson teaches accounting, and because I'm a business major and accounting was the thing I particularly worked with, it was very interesting. He teaches an Accounting 1, Accounting 2 course, and he had a practice set up. I don't know if you're familiar with what a practice set is, but in accounting, what they do is have a variety of actual materials that you would, an accountant would work with, a whole variety of documents that they would work with. And the kids pick these up and they had to, process them and analyze them. And sometimes they'd have their hand up and they'd wave them around and he would come by and give them some guidance to identify it and so forth. In addition to that, he teaches marketing class, he works for the yearbook, and he's just done a variety of things in the years that he's been here at Suburban. So, block out some time, people. Set up a time, sit in on some of these classes, and learn how the teachers that we're all paying taxes to support are doing a very competent job. You'll benefit very much from them. I just have one question I'd like to propose here. I read of these students that are having major problems and they're totally out of the school system. They must have committed a pretty major act. I taught students, and the last year I taught, we had a setup for disruptive students. And what I'm trying to identify here is a youngster that just bothers your class. It interfered with with the education, and it's not like they committed a major crime, but you can't teach. And I had to eject 2 students in the last year I taught because of their disruption. I'm wondering if you have an in-house program for senior high and middle school disruptive students. I wonder if I can have an answer to that question.
Again, we typically don't respond to questions from the audience. I'm going to give you a real short yes and invite you, if you want to learn more, I'm happy to spend time with you. We had a nice meeting in my office before you saw those teachers. Be glad to meet with you again.
I'd like to do that.
Thank you.
Very much.
I would like to share with the board, Mr. Grahl did come in to meet with me, and it was not our selection specifically who he saw. I asked him what subjects he wanted to see. He wanted to see 9th grade history, he wanted to see 11th grade history and accounting. So it wasn't as calculated as it might seem. But so when identifying those teachers, we landed well. So thank you, Mr. Grahl, for your interest.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other public comments? Ma'am? No? Okay, fine. Any other board comments? I'm going to adjourn the meeting in just a moment, and then if the board members can stay for about 2 minutes, I'd like to talk to you about the calendar email that Wendy sent out today, but we don't need to do that. It's either exec or here, then we'll do it here. That's fine. Thank you for straightening me out. So, Ms. Irwine sent out a calendar today inquiring whether board members might be available for a retreat a Saturday morning in June. With the exception of one board member who is blowing the town for a while, everyone indicated that Saturday, June the 10th would work. And so I wanted to ask if you would just block that on your calendars, and we'll be in touch with more information about that. And unless there's nothing else, I will adjourn this evening's meeting. Thank you for coming.